and welcome to the debate. My name is Naila Shuja. Now, as Pakistan is gearing up for the critical negotiations with the International Monetary Fund, the government is strategically preparing to balance the negotiations and the fiscal discipline with the country's economic needs. Now, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's team is trying to address and face the challenges head-on of safeguarding Pakistan's economic recovery while meeting with the IMF commitments. Now, that being said, tonight we will be discussing how Pakistan can navigate the economic crossroads that it is at and highlighting the resilience and resourcefulness of the financial managers. We are going to be joined in the studios by our senior analyst, Farrukh Batafi, as well as Raja Faisal. And on Skype, we will be joined by Taha Adil, research economist at the Policy Research Institute of Market Economy, as well as Aisha Khan, executive director of the Regional Peace Institute here in Pakistan. Now, that being said, in our second segment, we will be delving into the worsening environment situation that is persistent in the Punjab in Pakistan, that is being caused by the strong winds coming from the Indian side, causing a great deal of smog in not just Lahore, but Multan, Bhavalpur, Faisalabad, as well as Gujranwala and the surrounding vicinity. Smog is the plague of the province at the moment, with the air quality level being extremely toxic, and it's affecting the daily life and causing a health scare. Now, coming back to the initial topic, that is the implications of the IMF, that the meeting that is going to be happening with the Pakistan side and the IMF side. Now, again, it is important to mention that Pakistan is proactively engaged with the International Monetary Fund to basically balance the outcome that is prioritizing the economic stability without compromising growth. Again, the government of Pakistan at the moment is doing a great deal of work and has a great deal of initiatives in process to better the economy of Pakistan. And the great focus is being put on the recent economic indicators, which is showing a great sign of improvement for Pakistan, including easing in the inflation rate and the potential industrial growth. Now, that being said, that the FBR's position against the immediate tax hikes is also reflecting this confidence in the sustainable revenue growth without burdening the actual populace. Furthermore, the government is carefully weighing the options, either a mini budget or spending cuts, to achieve this fiscal discipline. Furthermore, the contingency tax measures are a backup plan, which are going to be emphasizing Pakistan's readiness to meet these challenges without compromising on the core development goals. And these measures, if they're implemented, viewers, they will be carefully calibrated to minimize their impact on the businesses and the common citizens. Now, that being said, it is important to really understand what is actually going to be happening, what is going to be taking place, and really understanding the nitty-gritties of it all. So, that being said, I would like to switch over and really understand that what is going to be happening, how is this going to be impacting the government. And I'd like to start off with Farrukh, if you'd like to explain and elaborate to us what exactly do you think is going to happen to Pakistan's economy and to the populace regarding this IMF meeting that is going to take place.
Right, Naila, thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you very much for the question. I think that the most important thing to remember is that this country 2 years ago was being declared something that is going to default. And after that, we have actually taken off. First of all, the Prime Minister of Pakistan at that time went to IMF and found on the 11th hour, on the last day, an SBA standby agreement with IMF, and that saved the country from default. After that, we have seen that once again Pakistan has not only entered the EFF, Extended Fund Facility, but also Pakistan has managed to acquire the first tranche that came last month, right? Now the next tranche is about to come, and for that Pakistan is going to start negotiating. But when it comes to fundamentals of the economy, Naila, everything is looking up. Look at the stock market, look at the inflation that is going down. Similarly, when it comes to fiscal and current account deficits, they are going down as well. So in short, when you look at the performance of the current finance minister, finance team, and the prime minister, his team, entire team, right, that is quite impressive. So that actually gives us a leg up when it comes to negotiating with the fund. And I hope in coming days what we see is that those talks actually take place and they take a positive trajectory. Of course, because Pakistan for a long time was known as a single tranche country where you would actually acquire the first tranche but then entirely fail to fulfill the conditionalities. Because of that, there is a historic trust deficit between the fund and Pakistan. But because the team that we now have are straight shooters and they have been actually not overcommitting regarding the kind of deliverables that are there. Because of that, I think that things are going to improve and things are going to look up.
Absolutely.
Now, regarding overall situation, of course, there are many things that need to be done. Divestment from SOEs, state-owned enterprises, and then investment from abroad as well. But until then, whatever we have got, we have nothing to worry about. Over to you, Naila.
Of course. Viewers, I'd just like to welcome our guests on Skype who have joined us now. Taha Aldil, the research economist at the Policy Research Institute of Market Economy, and the executive director of Regional Peace Institute, Ms. Aisha Khan. Thank you so much for taking the time out and joining us here on the debate. All right. Seems like, of course. Okay. Perfect. Your mic is working. So now coming to you, Aisha, I'd like to understand your opinion on what this IMF deal would mean for Pakistan and what exactly is the mini budget going to look like?
So I would agree that the IMF deal is a positive sign. Having said that, I think the main issue for Pakistan is not the IMF deal, but how it will be implemented. And I think I've worked in this sector with ADB World Bank for the last more than 20 years, and the main challenge has always been, and sadly it remains, implementation, particularly when we're looking at an implementation of the policies and the structural reforms. And I can't say that we are better placed in 2024 or in the future with regards to how we're moving forward. Yes, we do see positive signs of the stock exchange and of the inflation rate coming down. But when we look at the trends of real incomes of the people, and I was just discussing with Dr. Ali Chima, the VC of LUMS, just today, in fact, let's say we need to, and especially the government needs to work very diligently towards ensuring that the monies that come through the loan are allocated and are spent efficiently. So a great deal of follow-through is required before we can see any substantive and sustainable improvement in the fundamentals, even the macroeconomic fundamentals as they were mentioned. Thank you.
Of course. Now, coming to you, Taha, what's your take on this matter?
Thank you, Naila, for having me. So let me start with where we were last year. So inflation was around 30%, or foreign exchange reserves fell to around $3 billion. So we have stabilized our economy under this IMF program, and our government has done really well to stabilize the economy, and we are doing much better now. But having said that, we are not still out of the woods yet, and there is a long road ahead. We are still facing a lot of issues. Twin deficits are certainly a problem at the moment also, because we have seen higher expenditures and low revenues. But if we look into the reason why we are unable to increase our revenues, we will find out that the tax rates that we have increased in this budget, these we have increased tremendously, and the result is going to be that we will face shortfall in our revenues, because if according to Arthur Laffer and Laffer curve, there is a point till which if we increase the tax rates, our revenue will increase, but after that point our revenues will start decreasing. So what happens now is we have increased the tax rates, hoping that we will increase our revenues, but this is not a sustainable solution. We have to broaden our tax base, and in fact, we have to reduce the tax rates to encourage the compliance of citizens. And on the other hand, on the external front, we have financial obligations of around $25 billion, which we are going to manage through rollovers and support from friendly countries. But the real challenge will be how we are going to increase our exports, and we have to look at the our export basket and export markets. So this is the real challenge for the government, how they are going to increase access to the market for our exporters, and how they are going to improve the overall business conducive environment for the industries as well.
Absolutely, a very interesting take. Faisal, understanding that Pakistan is facing a projected revenue shortfall of 321 billion rupees, what arguments can the government present to persuade the IMF to adjust its revenue targets considering the global economic challenges and the various domestic pressures?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Naila, and just want to highlight first that of course we have been seeing a trajectory, economic trajectory of Pakistan, which suggests us that since more than 2 years we have been seeing that there were recommendations after recommendations by the IMF, with which of course Pakistan's government that had been in compliance with to of course contain all of the pressures which were on our economy. And that is why earlier, as Farokh highlighted, that there was a time when we were nearly getting bankrupt, but now we are standing where everything is looking smooth in the coming future. Reason being, in recent times, especially after SCO, we have seen that even the Moody's and Fitch, the kind of, their country profiling they were doing of Pakistan, it was coming very positive, and that too matters a lot. And when we talk about SCO was quite successful, and after that we have seen that Pakistan went through Middle Eastern countries, our friendly countries, and we had very positive indications from them as well in terms of investments in Pakistan. So when we are successfully bringing in the investments from abroad, which it means that of course the economic activities, they are going to increase. That itself is an is an indicator that can be presented in front of IMF, while our government would be sitting with them and talking over the kind of reservations. And of course there are a few concessions which government has already in mind to give it to the people at large, because we have been seeing that the very tough decisions were made by the government, and we have seen that people at large, they were affected by it. But now is the time that there would be few the concessions made by the current government, and there would be reasons that would be presented to IMF related to it, so that the case can be presented in a way that these were the margins with which government was coming up with extending these concessions, number one. And number two, when we talk about further recommendations of IMF, in that of course Pakistan can advocate that since the last meeting of IMF and the government, between both of them, the tax net has increased as well, and by the time we get to the next meeting, of course there would be further increase in the tax net, and that is a positive indicator. Plus the investments which are coming into Pakistan, of course they are going to be a part of Pakistan's economy, and that too is a positive indicator. When there is a lesser pressure on our economy, it itself would be an evidence that there is a room of further improvement in Pakistan's economy. And to me, I think that would be enough to talk about with IMF, and the kind of reservation they used to have before, they won't be having any more reservations, and the kind of recommendations they will be recommending to Pakistan for if there are any sort of changes in coming days in terms of our economic goals and all, then that can be discussed. But overall, I believe in coming months, Pakistan's economy can be considered heading more and more towards the positive side, and I think it's a good indicator.
A very interesting take again. Now, Aisha, I want to swing back to you again and just circle back. And I would like to know if you had something to add to this, simultaneously asking you if Pakistan commits to this implementation of this contingency tax measures, since we're on the topic, if it's required, how might these measures really impact the imports, the services, and the consumption sectors? And what does it mean for the overall economic situation?
Okay, well, so do you want me to start with the tax measures first, or talk about the first point? I just wanted to add with
Seems like we've lost your audio for a second. We're just going to switch it over to Taha for a second, and then we'll circle back to you, Aisha. Taha, would you care to add?
We are moving in the right direction. Like government is trying to reduce the burden, fiscal burden through privatization. We initiated the process of privatizing PIA. Unfortunately, we were unable to materialize some transaction, but we are heading in the right direction. Certainly, we need to do more in regard of reducing financial burden and cutting our expenditures, because the way our expenditures are increasing, it's not unsustainable. And we need to go for efficient allocation of resources, and also on the side of development. We need to do projects that are sustainable and that are going to generate revenues in future. And those projects that are not going to generate returns, we need to set them aside and go for those projects. So we overall on the fiscal side, government needs to go for efficient allocation of resources, and on the taxes side, like I said, increasing taxes will create some problems for the masses, because already tax rates are so high, and recently we increased the sales tax from 17% to 18%. So any further increase in the tax rates will create some dissentiment among the masses.
Right. Taha, I'm glad that you have actually spoken about privatization also. I just wanted to ask you regarding the efficacy of the way we structure our divestment plans. Do you think that our privatization commission has the kind of professional help that is needed for privatization design of various institutions like PIA? Do you think that it was properly structured, or we still need to revise it and make it more attractive?
Well, we have the capability and we were heading in the right direction. But the problem with the privatization, it's very complex and lot of stakeholders are involved. So in case of privatization, there were issues related to the employees, then the liabilities. Actually, the liabilities were much higher than the assets. So it is a kind of a difficult task for the government to divest the loss-making enterprises. But we are heading in the right direction, and with the right incentive structure in place, we will be able to divest these enterprises.
It seems quite about a very interesting point of view you have, Taha. So, Faisal, I'd like to swing it over to you, and understanding the potential impact of these withholding and the excise taxes on the businesses and the consumers, especially in the already fragile economic environment. What can you comment on this?
Yeah, Naila, obviously if we look at the current situations in terms of taxes, and at the same time we know that very recently the concessions we have been seeing from the State Bank itself in related to the interest rates, I think it is going to be a positive factor which is going to play a pivotal role in stabilizing Pakistan's economy further in coming days, because that would help not only to attract the FDIs, but of course the local investors, the ones who are securing their money elsewhere rather than putting them through to the economy and the industry side. They will be attracted towards, of course, pushing all of the money towards the industries, so that it can be, it can further become part of the economy itself, and further revenues can be generated by the government itself. So to me, I think these are the positive indicators.
Absolutely. So, Farooq, now I want to just swing to you and really understand the complexities of this. If the IMF rejects Pakistan's request for the revenue targets revisions, what would be the economic and political implications of introducing this mini budget at this specific stage?
Right. Naila, this is quite an interesting question, because I think that usually it is thought that you are supposed to actually manifest positive things rather than the negative. So we keep on worrying too much about things falling apart. Remember that IMF, of course, it has a history of being temperamental. At times we have seen them relaxing all the conditionalities. For example, when Pakistan was in the program in 2013-14, at that time, and that was perhaps the only program that we finished or completed. At that time, because there was a dharna going on, IMF relaxed all the conditionalities and the country continued to receive tranches. But later than that we saw in 2018 onwards, we have been going through turbulence. At that time, of course, it was a different government in the US, and once again that government is coming back to power. So there is an aspect of political economy to this as well. But as long as you are not lying, as long as you have genuine problems, I think that the fund is going to show some flexibility, if not total flexibility. That said, coming to your question, if, for example, those relaxations are not given, so remember that IMF is the doctor of last resort, and once you are committed to the program, you cannot refuse to take medicines. So eventually the country will have to actually follow that, and Pakistan will have to take the bitter pills. And then of course there's going to be some political hue and cry also. But once you have committed, Naila, in the end it is all for our own good. So I'm hoping that IMF actually shows the kind of flexibility that is needed because of the situation that we are facing. But in the end, of course, I'm sure that the government of Pakistan will be able to come up to any expectations that might be there.
Absolutely. Now, Faisal, with reference to the various IMF demands to Pakistan before approving the bailout programs, fiscal reforms, monetary and exchange policy rates, structural reforms, debt management, repayment strategy, social impact and safeguards, transparency and monitoring. That's a great deal. Would you care to comment?
Yeah, it's a huge deal even for me to comment on it.
Truckload of course.
Yeah, but Naila, the overall situation, if we look at, the kind of work SIFC was put in, I think that too is a positive side to show to IMF when it comes to, since almost a year, since last year when the SIFC's work was at its full swing, we have been seeing that there is a mechanism that is providing Pakistan with the bumper crops, and we shouldn't be forgetting that the next phase of our economy, it is going to, of course, receive the bumper crops as well, and that too would be a positive indicator to show to IMF. And at the same time, SIFC is involved in many other projects as well. Of course, agriculture is one of them, mining is the other, and the day by day the progress of the SIFC, it has been increasing, and to me I think there is a lot to show to IMF, and eventually we will be able to be in a position in which of course we can simply convince IMF on the concessions which are planned by Pakistan, and overall the figures to be shown to the IMF. I don't think there will be any trouble to of course we will be facing from the IMF side.
Absolutely. Aisha, swinging this question over to you, what do you think about this whole thing?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, absolutely. Please
Absolutely.
go ahead.
All right. So, sorry, the IMF loan or the tax situation, can you, repeat your question, please? I've been having connectivity issues, sorry.
No worries. So the International Monetary Fund it has various demands to Pakistan before approving the bailout programs, right? So that means that there are various fiscal reforms, monetary and exchange rate policies, structural reforms, debit management, repayment strategies, social impact, and safeguards, along with transparency and monitoring. It's a loaded bag of demands. Do you have anything to comment on this? How is this going to look?
Yeah, well, like everyone's been saying, we are moving in the right direction. Things are looking optimistic. Having said that, I also see our tax collection or the revenue that we generate as a major challenge. It's not just about broadening the tax base. I think, as we have seen, that the cost of doing business in the recent past has been extremely challenging. Our reliance is primarily on indirect taxation. Sadly, due to a lot of graft that takes place, we are unable to, give the kind of results in our tax collections that we are supposed to deliver on. Having said that, of course, I think the government is trying. They are moving in the right direction. But we have to keep in mind that we are in an economic crisis. And in a crisis situation, to speak of, yes, things have stabilized, but is it enough? I think that's a question we need to ask ourselves. And there are several things that we need to do in parallel. If we look at our debt to GDP ratio, if we look at what the predictions are for economic growth, I think the government needs to make more of an effort to facilitate private sector. Having that background myself, I think much more needs to be done, and the Pakistan Business Council has been discussing that. It has been well received by the government, but still, in order to meet the demands of IMF, it's absolutely essential that all the key stakeholders are on board. They work together, and this also includes academia and civil society, because there's a softer side to things, with regards to economic growth, and that is the public trust. You cannot move forward without looking at the microeconomic indicators such as consumer behavior, the market. Unemployment rate, for example, that's a major indicator. That's something that government has not even begun to pay attention to. And these are things that inform and give input to the macroeconomic indicators, especially if we want those indicators or that change to be sustainable in any way. So a good initiative, good efforts with the IMF loan. There's a good team on board. But the follow through, that is where, like they say, the devil is in the detail. Well, in this case, to be on the road to economic recovery, the devil is in the follow through of these plans and of bringing in the kind of efficiency in the public sector that is required. So that means a lot of initiatives have been taken with regards to streamlining or right-sizing the public sector, but the kind of expenditure that we still see that the public sector incurs, that is not very cost efficient. So, things, in order to meet IMF demands, one has to look at these matters in a holistic way. You can't pick up one thing or one indicator and say, okay, here the stock exchange looks good, or the inflation rate is on a downward trend. We have to look at the real income. What is our middle class like in the consumer purchasing power? The small businesses. What is the level of our middle class as compared to middle class in other South Asian countries? And this is something that the government has to ask itself when it's determining incentives for businesses or even for consumers. So mine is a cautionary note. It's a cautionary, rather than we have a tendency to immediately be very celebratory on just one small indicator. For example, getting the IMF loan. First, it's a loan. We've gotten loans before. We really need to make that serious effort to invest in bringing about a real
Aisha, can you hear us?
Yes.
Aisha, I wanted to come up with a supplementary question, and that was related to, of course, I am glad that you have highlighted the challenges which are being faced by our economy. At the same time, can we say that the initiation of SIFC was good for our economy, because eventually all of the problems and challenges which you have highlighted, it has everything to do with the volume of our economy. Eventually, if SIFC can help the country to increase the volume of the economy, can we say that all of these problems can be solved?
And by the way, he came up with a supplementary question. I'm coming up with a complementary question. Again, really glad that you spoke about right sizing and correcting our bureaucracy and our governance. The question on my mind right now is, do we have the kind of wherewithal that is needed to bring about the kind of reforms that we are committing to? Because since ever, I've been seeing these reports after reports, how to right size and how to reform our bureaucracy and our governance structure. But I haven't seen any follow through, as you pointed out, that the devil lies in follow through. So kindly tell me, do we have the kind of wherewithal and conviction to do it?
So I'm going to take the first question, the supplementary one that was asked me, and yes, I'll come to you quickly. SIFC, yes, it looks good. I don't want to be cynical, but we have our board of investments. I'm not someone who supports parallel institutions coming up, new ideas. I feel that whatever institutions that exist, they need to be upgraded and improved. And end of the day, as one of my colleagues at the World Bank said, an institution is as good as the last person you meet. So it's about people. It's about people's competencies. It's about people's commitments, within the institutions or the organizations, that in the public sector. So SIFC is, yes, a good idea. I think we'll have to see. It looks good. It seems to have done something. But, again, like I said, I'm someone who's quite conservative in about new institutions coming up and, doing what was supposed to be done by the government in, maybe in a different way. So that I hope that helps to clarify like I said, we are hopeful, but end of the day, it's not hope that will make a real difference, but the results on the ground. And I think the people of Pakistan have been waiting a long time for real results, that makes a difference in the GDP per capita, in their living standard, in their productivity levels, in their ability to work and hold jobs, and so on and so forth. Coming back to your
Complementary question.
complimentary one, sorry, can you kind of refresh? You were talking about challenges. Sorry, can you refresh a little bit what you asked? Yes.
Yeah, I was actually quoting from your own answer previously and regarding, the need for reform and follow through. And the question was that our bureaucracy seems to have so much inertia. Do you think that we have the wherewithal and conviction to reform?
I inertia, having worked with the Swiss government, and bureaucracies are more or less the same around the world. In Pakistan, the challenges, and in particularly in this current situation, there's a lot of uncertainty, and there is a degree of complexity that was not there in terms of working, in terms of delivering on things, and you don't know, the kind of uncertainty that is around. People are afraid to do something which is maybe right today, but would be wrong tomorrow. So there is a lot of arbitrariness. And if we would only, whether in the public sector or the governance norms or rules or procedures that we have, if we would only follow our own rules and policies, I think Pakistani people are very capable. They have a lot of capacity, intellectual capital is available, but the environment is not conducive to the kind of confidence that is required for initiative. What I have observed, and I think some colleagues of mine will speak to that also, is that reforms remains a challenge in Pakistan, not for lack of capacity, but again because of the level of kind of politicization of simple things or activities, or that should really be considered on a professional basis. Performance at times is politicized, and I think that is one of the major elements in the public sectors or public sector officials' inability to kind of follow through. We don't want to, I'm not someone who's looking to lay the blame here or there, but I think it's very
take, Aisha. Absolutely, a very, very interesting take. And with that, that concludes our first segment. A huge thank you to our guests who have joined us online. Taha Adil, research economist at the Policy Research Institute of Market Economy, and Aisha Khan, executive director of Regional Peace Institute. A huge thank you again for joining us on the debate.
Thank you.
And that is the first segment of our show. And that being said, our next segment, we're turning to the worsening environment situation that is persisting in the Punjab. And the smog is continuing to be a plague in the province, and Lahore is maintaining its grim title as being most polluted, and the toxic area is spreading all over, and not just in Multan, but also Gujranwala and the various vicinities surrounding it. Now, that being said, Faisal, I'm going to swing it over to you again. Just despite the ongoing smog operations and the various enforcement agencies going ahead with the Green Initiative, what other steps can we take as citizens of Pakistan to make sure that we're playing our due role in maintaining a healthy environment, not just for ourselves, but for the entirety of the population as well?
Yeah, Naila, I mean, today I was actually going through the news, and almost all of the prominent news agencies and news channels of the world, they were reporting about this smog. And it wasn't only Lahore they were reporting about, they were obviously reporting about New Delhi as well. So they were treating it as a single story, not a story that is separately coming from two different countries. it shows that our problems and India's problems when it comes to smog, they are same. It means that both of the countries, of course, they have to contribute in terms of fighting this new menace of smog. Of course, it has been there previously as well in previous years, but since few years it has been increasing more and more. When we talk about climate change, when we talk about our contributions in terms of emissions towards our environment, I mean, Pakistan and India, of course, both are sharing our environment, and I think whatever the emissions are, be it from Pakistan side or from India side, both of the countries, they have to, of course, contribute, and they need to sit together. I mentioned it last week as well. I do it again, and I say it that if not the government to government level, at least there should be Mayor of Lahore and Mayor of New Delhi. Both of them, they need to sit together, and they need to, of course, go through a plan to how to counter this menace for the coming years. This time around, of course, in Pakistan, Lahore is facing the same problems as are being faced by Punjab at large from both sides, and New Delhi, which happens to be the capital city of India. Both of the cities, mayors of the cities, they have to, of course, sit together and work out a plan for coming future, because I believe they are sharing this problem, and they should be coming up the joint action towards countering this problem.
A very interesting take indeed. Now, Farokh, just quickly before we wrap up the show for today, the economic aspect when it comes to smog, there are going to be long-term strategies that should be implemented by the government and overall, as you mentioned, Pakistan and our neighbor. What are some of the recurrence of these hazardous, this hazardous condition that is going to be happening in the future, and how is it going to be impacting the economic situation?
Right. Once again, thank you very much. Very quickly, Faisal said that both India and Pakistan share a problem. I think yes, they do, and it is called India. India, most of these emissions are coming from the Indian side, not Pakistan. You can, I mean, the simple logic, look at economic activity, where it is more. In India, there is more factories, there is more traffic, there is also more, crop burning. So because of that, they keep on contributing to this pollution more. Of course, if they had common sense, they would have been discussing it already. I don't think that that is that easily achieved, because they don't even seem to want to play cricket in Pakistan. So why would they want to talk to Pakistan on something that is killing their kids also, if it is affecting ours? But see, this is the problem with something so huge. You cannot come up with a cure. So what are you going to do? Are you going to stop living there? Are you going to stop breathing there? Are you going to just move out of those places, or then quit all the business activities? There has to be a plan. I have proposed that both India and Pakistan should be asked to sit on a table together by something like a World Bank or any kind of infrastructure bank that actually asks them both to come up with a joint plan to go towards greener means of economy, and also to find a climate resilient ways to survive all this.
Absolutely, absolutely, most definitely. And with that, viewers, it is time to conclude our show. We covered two very pressing issues. The first, we discussed the government's preparations to talk to the International Monetary Fund, focusing on balancing the fiscal responsibility with the economic needs. And then we examined Punjab's smog crisis that is persistent, and it's severely impacting public health and public activity in general. Both challenges really highlight the urgent need for effective policies and long-term solutions to ensure the stability and the health of our future and the future of Pakistan. With that, viewers, it is time to sign off. A huge thank you to our senior analysts Farokh Batafi and Raja Faisal. And that's all from the debate. This is Naila Shuja. Take care.